What's up, everyone? It's your host, Jonah. Welcome to the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show, where we learn new things every episode through conversations with guests around the globe. So hit that sub button so you can keep up with the journey. Today, we welcome Mary K. Savarese, traditionally published, award-winning Amazon bestseller fiction author and speaker. Thanks, Mary. I appreciate you coming on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, it's an honor. It really is. I heard one of the titles of your book that really caught my eye. I believe it was Tigers Love Bubble Baths.
Tigers love bubble baths and obsession perfume. Who knew?
That's awesome. I love that title. So tell my listeners just a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I am an award-winning, traditionally published author, and I'm with you. And I say that very humbly. My books have won awards, and it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be in the world of creating. I love to create stories that are fantasy because reality is too real. And that, as I will discuss with you, is what gives me the spark in my life.
When and why did you get started in writing?
It was something that I always had in the back of my thoughts, that I have all these ideas. And I'm an overnight success, a 10-year overnight success. As I had all these ideas and I tried to bring it to fruition, my goal was to become traditionally published. A little over 10 years ago, self-publishing is not what it is today, Jonah. I mean, it was taboo back then. Today, there are so many outlets available to aspiring authors, but there wasn't then. So I would write manuscript after manuscript and snail mail back then, but at least the publishers would look at it. Today, many things are closed to an author. So it's been a long journey, but it's also a learning adventure. And it's a journey that I truly believe we each have that journey to take in our lives. And it's had its ups and downs. And for the most part, I can say ups, yes.
What type of speaking are you partaking in?
Anything. I love to speak to women's groups. I love to speak to aspiring authors. Anything. If you want me on a speaking gig, I am there, because there's so much energy, as you know yourself, with an audience and that give and take. It's just so much fun. And people really want to know the ins and outs. And I'll answer any question. I'm going to be honest with you and really try to help you in your journey if I can.
Awesome. So the publishing company that you work for, I remember you telling me it was an all-female publishing company, correct?
Yes. The current publishing company. Now, you would think once you are a publishing author, I began with a small publishing firm. And once you think, oh, gosh, they published my book, I'm doing well, that they would accept your next idea. And that really was not the case. I had approached my first publisher with a trilogy idea. And that's not where they wanted to go. And that was okay. So I approached another small publishing house, and it is all females, and it's a young publishing house, and they are absolutely wonderful. And it's called Indigner House. And I've been working with them, and I am currently editing with the creative editor the second book of the trilogy.
What does an editor actually do within the book process? Does he go through and just proofread everything?
Well, there are different types of editors. The editor that I've been privileged to deal with, she works in a different capacity. She will sit with me one-on-one, and we will literally go through word by word, sentence by sentence, several hours a week. And believe it or not, it gets the job done. But it takes a good year. From the time you actually submit your idea to a publishing house and they accept it, you could be looking at 2 years if you're traditionally published, to have that book be published. And what a creative editor does is they take your work, they have the gift of just moving words here or there, manipulating in a certain way. And authors, we're very this is our baby, right? So we don't want to hear, oh, I don't like this, so you should change this. But they know what they're doing, and they know how to take your work and bring it to the next level. So you really have to learn to let go and trust them. I mean, there are times that I will, I'll hold my own because it has to be this way. I know my story inside and out. So I know if they don't want this or they want to take it out completely, it could affect my whole storyline.
So do you have any books that you haven't published yet or you have upcoming?
Books that are not published yet. I have 4 other manuscripts written behind the ones that have been published. So as you discussed, my debut novel, which has won 8 awards, Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume. Who knew? If you would indulge me, I would love to tell you the whole story behind the title, because I'm an author that loves to write with quirky titles. I'm inspired by something in my life, and it has to do with that title. And then I weave everything around that, the characters, the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Well, let's hear it. I'm excited. I've been waiting for that. I was gonna push it into later in the show, but I can see you're excited to tell me. Let's do it.
Tigers are such beautiful creatures. So, my debut novel, it was the 4th manuscript that I wrote. And it is a mystery romance intertwined with the supernatural. And it was inspired. Several years ago, I visited a wildlife reserve in St. Augustine, Florida. And at the end of the tour, I come to this 12, 15 foot wide tank overflowing with bubbles. And I'd say it was about 5 feet high. I'm behind a thin cage. There's a ladder there, and the wildlife handler is standing on it. And they open up this chute, and out comes this 600-pound Siberian tiger. The tiger literally walks across the plank, looks like he's taking off a robe, slips into this vat of bubbles, and the wildlife handler sprays Obsession perfume on his tongue, and he laps it up like a cocktail. And Jonah, I stood there. My mouth was open. I could not believe what I was seeing, because here you have a wild creature that is taking on these human qualities by loving these bubbles, and they could sit in a bubble bath forever. I mean, they sleep 23 hours a day. If they could, they'd lay in the bubble bath. And the Obsession perfume that they love so much has pheromones in it, and it calms them down. So I said, oh, tigers love bubble baths and Obsession perfume. Who knew? That's the title of my next book, and I weaved my mystery romance around that. So I have to tell you something funny, Jonah. So the publisher said, please, Mary, please tell me there is a tiger in a bubble bath. And I said, oh, there is. It's my climax. So it's weaved into the supernatural part of the story.
So can we talk just a little bit about the story itself?
Absolutely. The title is actually a metaphor, in that this reserve that I had visited is very much like an old folks' home for abandoned big cats, tigers, lions, jaguars, cougars. And maybe they were left over from a movie TV show, cable. Tigers, people were in the past were allowed to have them as pets, and people obviously cannot deal with the tigers, so they would send them to this reserve. So basically, these were beautiful creatures that were tossed aside like an old shoe. So the title of the book became a metaphor for my protagonist, Angie Pantera, who after 25 years of marriage is tossed aside like an old shoe herself by the husband on their wedding anniversary, and she has to start anew, just like these older cats were starting anew. And so and as I said, it's a murder mystery. So if your audience loves mysteries with murder, I have one murder after another. Is Angie causing the murders? Will she be murdered next? So it's always one twist after another.
I won't make you go into much more detail. I don't want to give it away for everybody. Your other book, The Girl in the Toilet Wallpaper.
I love
Did
it.
I say that right?
I love the way you say, because it's always a joke. If I'm interviewed, they'll always say to me, Mary, what is this book? The Girl in the Toilet Wallpaper. Toile wallpaper. And toile it sounds so foreign, but it is something that is part of our everyday lives. And it's been around for 200 years. It can be anything. It tells a story. I'm going to just hold this up for your audience. And you see, this tells a story. This is a fabric, and it's usually two tones of very bright fabric. And it could be contemporary. It could be old-fashioned. It could be whatever. But it tells a story. It's a little different. Like people will say to me, it's like a mural. It's a little bit different than a mural, because in a mural, you have one scene of something. In the toile, which can be wallpaper or fabric, it takes several different scenes and keeps imposing them. So instead of just one scene, it's several that tell a story. And again, I was influenced. I love toile wallpaper, and it's been around for a couple of 100 years. And as I would walk past it in my home, I would see betrayal. I would see love. I would see everything going on. And I said, I've got to write a story around that. And so the fantasy, adventure, and again, it's intertwined with romance, because you always have to have some kind of romance. And I have several in it. I have a coming of age. I have a love for the first time for a woman in her early 30s who's a career oriented. Unfortunately, I have a divorce, and then I have the young love in it as well. So, and it's all intertwined. It's in the present. It's a contemporary story, but it takes you to different parts of the world. It takes you to Florence, Italy. It takes you to Siena, Italy. And again, these were all experiences that I had. Not that I went into the toile wallpaper anywhere in my life, but just visiting these fabulous places. I would always walk around, as I do, with a green notebook. And anytime I hear any fascinating names or titles that I think would be fabulous for a book, I write it and I keep it in my green notebook.
So how long did it take you to write each book?
John, it usually takes me a good year to write a book, because I start with the title. In my mind, I become the characters. I work the characters that I think are appropriate for the idea. I'm not necessarily that type of author that I have to do chapter by chapter, because I don't know. I begin with, I have an idea of where to start. And what I love about writing is, and creating something, is it takes me on a journey. And where I think I may have thought, oh, it's going to go this way, it's actually better that it takes me somewhere else. So that's what I just find so fascinating about writing a manuscript.
When do you find yourself most creative?
Usually probably in the morning, but it could be any time of day. And sometimes being creative for me just means sitting somewhere quietly in my thoughts and going through the ideas in my head instead of just writing. And the ideas can come to me and then I'll jot them down and it'll be a general idea. And then I start. And as an author, I always find you start with one word. That word becomes a sentence. The sentence becomes a paragraph. The paragraph then becomes a page. And it just can flow. And it's this incredible energy, as I'm sure as you have with your audience, that is just so inspiring.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What was your biggest hurdles getting your books out to the public?
The biggest hurdle was finding a publisher that was interested, and that took a decade because, as I said, I did not want to go the route of the self-publishing because back then it wasn't available to the author as it is today. So that was the biggest hurdle, is getting somebody, just one publisher interested in your work. And that's all it takes. And I've sent out to dozens. And as those, you have to build a thick skin. As those rejections come in, sorry, you're a good writer, but it's not what we're looking for. And you just put it aside because for me, it brings me great joy to be in that creative process.
Well, at least you stayed with it and you persevered through that. That's amazing.
Well, thank you.
Having these two books, there's two separate genres, right?
Yes.
Do you not like sticking with one genre? You kind of like going into different varieties? Well,
the first book, The Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume, Who Knew? Again, even though it's a murder mystery, it does have fantasy within it. So I do have that idea where I'm creating something that takes you on an adventure, a fantasy adventure. The Girl in the Tall Wallpaper is the first of the Star Writers trilogy, and that is a fantasy adventure. And that actually, I'll tell you the toughest thing for me that I'll share with your audience. The Girl in the Tall Wallpaper, the first of the trilogy, tells, again, as I said, it tells the story of basically what it is family loyalty. And 2 centuries ago in Florence, Italy, the family loyalty was doing what the family said. Well, you have to marry this person. Well, the heart wants what the heart wants. And my protagonist, my main character, Lily, wants what the heart wants. And unfortunately, what happens is it puts her into the toile wallpaper forevermore. And that I was able to create because it's contemporary. I take you back. The second of the trilogy is, and I wish I could share the title with you, and I would love to show the cover, but that isn't there as yet. But working with the editing part, it's been very difficult because I've taken a theme from the first book, The Girl in the Tall Wallpaper, and the second book is the theme, and I've created worlds. So that I have found the most difficult right now. But again, it's all learning and it's a journey. And I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful editor.
So how does it feel after you see your first copy get sold?
Oh, it's an incredible feeling. When that contract first comes in, like it did for me, it's just an incredible feeling. And when you actually hold, the publisher, the difference between self-publishing is you have to do everything yourself. Working with the publisher, they do the editing, they do the cover for you. And so when you first hold the book and you see your idea go from paper, from manuscript to a book, it is an incredible feeling. And then reality hits. because then you have to go out there, and I work with a small publishing house, a new publishing house. So I do a lot of the marketing by myself. Then reality hits. You want to go out there and you want to connect with readers and build readers, and to have that audience and to have them love your work and continue with you.
Yeah, it's a little bit like podcasting. You got to build your audience. You got to
Yes.
build what you do. The only difference is with you versus me is I can't hold mine. I can't physically hold it. It's just, it's out there.
You just go like this. Just go like this, Joan.
Oh,
yeah, you're holding it all up.
So are your books out on audio?
No, but that's my next project, because thank you for asking me. I am in touch with an audio production company. So I'm going to be looking at that in the new year. But I'm excited because also this publishing house that I'm working with has been possibly talking about taking Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume, Who Knew, and writing it into a screenplay. That's not something I would do. So that's wonderful to hear and exciting. But those are all just, we're just hearing little vibes going on with that, but nothing set in stone. But I'm going to be looking at probably The Girl in the Twa Wallpaper, having that put on audio. I think that would be fabulous.
Yeah, a lot of people like the audio books. They don't like to read it anymore.
Yeah, but again, people, they're in their cars or wherever, so it's easy enough to listen to a book that way.
Oh yeah. I've actually been thinking about getting into the voice acting for audio books, reading, but with the podcast and everything, it's kind of time consuming. So yeah, my friend told me it takes sometimes every day of the week to get a book, one chapter of a book.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, because you could be reading anywhere from 350 to 600 pages. So it's a production, as it is to write a book. It's a production.
And I'm thinking about doing it. I don't know if I want to though. It's all.
It's worth the journey.
So how hard is it with all these authors out there to get noticed by publishers?
Well, it's hard. And I'm not going to lie to you. They are looking for something. They're looking for the next Harry Potter. They're looking for the next vampire series. But, many of them, they know exactly. Different publishing houses are could be looking for different things. And it's just sometimes you get that one editor that picks up your work and says, hey, let me just show this to this editor in the publishing house, and they like it. And it's luck. It is. It's timing. It's luck. But I can tell your audience that, if you have ambitions of becoming an author, don't chase what's out there, because go with your gut and what you absolutely love and know to write about. Because by the time you're following the latest trend, it's passed you by and they won't be interested in it. So you've got to spur their attention with something that is truly yours.
And yours are novels, right? So how many pages are there?
Yeah, in the publishing world, they go by words. So if you hear 90,000 words, that's usually about 425 to 435 pages. 70,000 words, 80,000 words, you're looking at 325 to 375 pages. It depends. There's some publishing houses, they want 600 pages. There's some that want novellas, which are only 150. The younger the age, if you're writing for middle schoolers, then you're looking at 60, 80 pages. But young adult, you are probably looking at a minimum 229 up to maybe 400 pages.
Yeah, I can only read about 25 to 30 pages in about an evening.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's
a lot.
Sometimes that's like 3-4 hours worth.
Yeah,
And
but
so
that's still a lot.
Sometimes I'll have to go back and reread the paragraph before because I didn't really pay attention to it. And then you see something, you're like, oh, crap, now I got to go back.
Right.
I hate those moments. Out of the 2 books you have out, which one would you say was easier to write and why?
I would say they're on an equal plane. And what I mean by that is the idea was there. And the pages just took me in. I kept going with them. So they were equally. The hardest is the manuscript that they are editing currently, the second in the trilogy, the Star Writers trilogy. The second book is the hardest for me because in a sense it's new territory because I'm creating worlds. The other books, you're dealing with what you know and experience, real life. But what I'm doing now is creating worlds. So it's been a difficult journey. It takes a good year for me from the time I begin with the idea, the title, to where I finish the manuscript. And that includes editing. And that's just my own editing where you go back and you're redoing and redoing. And then when you submit it to the publisher, they still take it to the next level. They move, passages around, they move chapters around. And it's incredible what the product is when you see it. It's any author that you have read, the authors that are a peer to new authors, what they submit and what the end product is totally different. And that's with every author.
So do you ever sit down and do it the old school way with pen and paper, or do you do it all on the computer?
Well, you know what? When I started writing my first manuscript, I had to prove to myself that was the beginning, that I can actually write 300 pages. I started with a pad, and then you'd write, and I'd cross out, and I'd go back. And then when I went to re-edit what I did, I started to put it on a laptop. And I found that as my ideas came out, I was able to work faster on a laptop, and it was much easier to do the corrections. So for me, I love writing it on the laptop. It's just my thoughts can go that much faster than just writing it by hand. But some people, they write by hand. That is their creative part. The very famous author, David Baldacci, he writes on yellow, the legal paper.
Mm.
And he writes all those political thrillers. He's one of my favorite authors.
I get itchy having to write a paragraph for anything. I couldn't imagine having to hand write 350 pages.
Oh, but 350 handwritten pages would probably equate to writing 500 plus pages.
I couldn't do it. I would have carpal tunnel. My arm would be falling off. I'd be done.
And I look at what you do, and I go, I couldn't do that. Set up my studio, get everything working.
It takes a little bit of time. That's all. Yeah. I mean, I get in here probably an hour and a half before recording, and I get everything set up, turn everything on, do a test hit, and then I'll go ahead and just start the room. And in 30 minutes, I just send the link out. It's kind of the easiest way to do it. Make sure everything's good. My last episode, by the way, to my listeners, I'm so sorry. My side of the audio got messed up. I'm going to try not to let it happen again. Okay. I hope you guys can still squeak through that thing because that guy was awesome. And, anyway, yeah, I had a bad little mishap last episode.
And it happens. It happens.
So when you get into your flow, how many pages do you think you can write in one day?
It depends. depends. Honestly, I've gone from just writing one page, and one page could have taken me several hours because I started, I edited it, kept doing it, and didn't like it. So I started again. But I could probably the most I've ever written, and it's taken me 8 hours, 10 pages, and I've edited that several times. Some authors work differently. They can write faster, but that's the best I can do with quality work that I think is quality.
You're like creating a whole new world and getting deep into it, correct?
Yeah.
And you're putting all those
Yeah.
details within the story. I'm sure that takes a long time to sit there and think of everything that's going to happen within the story and trying to make it match up.
Yeah. And that's actually the easy part. The difficult part is then taking and where you edit it. You want to show to your readers. You don't want to tell them the story. So many times I'll fall back and I end up telling the story. That's a no-no. So you have to go back and you have to edit and you have to show them. So what I mean by showing is if I wrote, Jonah is anxious, okay, that is telling the reader. What you have to do is show them. And the way you would show that is Jonah's hands, where he's rustling the paper and he's rubbing his legs. So all of those things. So you go from like 10 words to like 2 paragraphs where you're showing what is going on. And that's what makes a good book. And then when you meet with your editor, they're taking whatever you've done with telling and they're working with you to put that into showing the reader. And as my editor says, what they want to do is you want your reader to become the characters in your book, to really identify with them. And as they become part of the emotion and the energy, they become part of the characters themselves.
So your characters, do you use people that you know within your story? And you just take their personality and put it into that character?
Yeah. See, I would never take anybody that I know personally and put it, because sometimes people would get offended. But what I do is I do create characters. So characters are bits and pieces of maybe different things that I've seen in people, and I put it together in a character. And what I do is I'm not the type of author that goes around and I'm that character physically speaking to everybody in that tone or that voice or those mannerisms. I try to be them in my head, but each one of those characters, I live them. And when you start a novel, for me, it's so inspiring and so energizing that when I finally finish writing those pages, it's sad. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm done with this. In the sense that it's taken me that time to write it. And for me at the end, it's sad. I should be happy. But because I've created that world, those people, they become real to me. So it's like I'm losing them.
Oh, but you can always go back and just read them.
Right? Exactly.
You wipe your tears away and go read it again.
And like you put them away, and then sometimes I forget, like, the little subtleties that maybe I put into a story, but I've moved on to the new ones. So I've kind of like, I'm betraying them in a way because I'm moving on to the new characters in the new book.
Coming up with characters, do you use very off the wall names, or do you try to keep them generic?
It depends what the theme is, because the characters have to work around that, and it depends where they are, what they're doing. And so that's how I come up with their names. It could be anything, any type of a name. And sometimes, as I said, I've collected very strange names that I've absolutely fallen in love with, and I've had to use that. So,
when are you looking at your next book coming out?
well, initially it was supposed to come out at the end of the year, but the editing, I thought the book would be about maybe 375 pages. We're going to be about 450 pages in this book. And what I love about the editor and the publisher is we're working on it, and you want quality work. It's not like, they're not rushing out something to get it out by the end of the year, as we had discussed in the contract. And I am perfectly fine with that, Jonah. I want the quality where the reader will pick it up and say, wow, this is a great story and it's really got my interest. So probably the beginning of the year. So we're maybe 2 months behind, which to me is not a big deal. This time of the year, I think, is very difficult to be getting your book out there because there's so much noise going on. With the holidays and everything else. People don't have time to do what they need to do, let alone, oh, okay, here's a new book, blah, blah, blah. So I'm a little thrilled that it's more like the beginning of the year.
And it's the second in a trilogy.
Yes.
And that's with the wallpaper.
The Girl in the Tall Wallpaper, yes. So the first book is what this is, tells the story. The second book takes a theme, a supernatural theme that's kind of brought into the first book. And there are times I'm like, why? I'm pulling my hair out. But because I've created these worlds, it's a theme from the first book. The third book in the trilogy, I'm actually excited about because I do have that a little bit more than halfway written in a manuscript. That will bring you back to the characters in the first book. So you kind of get a little taste of something different in between the 3 books, but they are all tied together.
Oh, that's awesome. Now that would probably transfer into good screenwriting, wouldn't it?
Well, that would be wonderful. Yeah, if somebody's interested in that, absolutely. I truly believe that the Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume Who Knew would make a great series, because within that book, just the way it is, the supernatural part of it, you may be granted a wish, but you've got to die. That's part of the murder. So I think you can continuously have one story after another going on in my debut novel. The Girl in the Tall Wallpaper, I see that more as, and I love fantasy adventure movies. I see that more as, that would make a great movie. One and done.
What has been the most enlightening moment of your journey so far?
I love you told me that. What is the explosion, the enlightening moment? I could say, and you hear it all the time, your story, your journey. That spark that we all have, and I call it your spark, that's the most enlightening, because you can be hit with this spark at any point in your life. What do you do with it? My spark, I put it on the back burner, no pun intended, but I didn't allow that spark to become an ember. I'm going to talk, metaphorically here, but I put it aside. That spark was there, and that was the most enlightening thing. When my life came to a certain point, I'm in the second chapter of my life, that spark grew into the ember, grew into the flame. So everybody, you have your own spark. And I think that was the most enlightening thing to me, is never give up on yourself. Because if you have that passion in your heart for something, it could be anything, that like as I said, that spark will become that flame that keeps you going. And that, to me, is the most enlightening thing. It can happen at any time. Depends. Do we put it out? Do we let it, do we give it oxygen and let it just grow into this flame? And everybody's different, but it's your spark. And I think that's the most important thing, is never give up on yourself, ever, 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 because I can tell you, it took me 10 years and the journey continues, and it will.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think a lot of people haven't found their spark yet. Don't even know what the spark would even look like.
Let me address that. What your spark is. You know what your spark is. If you can't wait to jump out of bed and do it, there's your spark. Because that was me with when I started with the writing. Oh, I couldn't wait. Oh, I went to bed. I didn't want to go to sleep. I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning and to just get to writing and those ideas. That's something that you're thinking about and you can't wait to get to it. That is your spark. Spark can be anything.
That is insightful. Very insightful. Because this podcast is my spark. That's what it is.
Exactly. It would never be my spark, Jonah, because mine would just peter out. And everybody has their special spark.
Everybody does. You just got to find it. Figure out what you want to do and go do it. I mean, you live in a free country. Just go do it.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And don't let somebody, and people are ready to put your spark out. So don't let them put your spark out. Just have faith in yourself and stick with it. If you have that passion, it'll come. I can promise you it'll happen for you, not overnight, but if you stick with it, it'll happen for you. And
don't put your own spark out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, so where can everybody find you?
You can find my novels, Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume, Who Knew? And the first of the trilogy, The Girl in the Tall Wallpaper. I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I'm in any independent bookstore. I feel so bad because many of them had closed during COVID. So I love to support them. But you can visit my author website, connect with me, and I can connect you to Amazon or wherever. But you can go to www.Mary, M-A-R-Y-K, Savarese, SAVARESE.com. And I have wonderful little toile rooms there and other things of information.
I'll make sure to put your website down in the description of the episode.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much coming on, and you are always welcome back. Just let me know.
Oh, thank you. I would love to come back, Jonah. When I have my book cover and I know I have a production date and I have the title, I would love to come back on your show.
Oh, yeah. I'll get a hold of your books, read them, and we'll talk about it.
That sounds wonderful.
Thank you so much for coming on. That's all the time we have for today. You can find us on our new website, thebceshow.com. Go check it out, where you can contact us and subscribe. Remember to give us a rate and review. It helps the podcast with that pesky algorithm. Thanks for listening.